I've just always been someone who's very present and involved in the making, and I always forget that people are going to see it and hear me.
When I die, I want to be sprinkled in the ocean. I don't care if a whale eats me. I could live inside a whale like Jonah with an angel guard.
I remember being flown to Boston for my final audition, meeting Cher and Winona in the production office, and then going and having an audition with them. Noni and I talked about sharks, because I have a lifelong fear of sharks, and so does she apparently. And then I got that call that I got the part like a day later. And I had a really amazing time. I loved Cher. I loved Winona. I spent a lot of time with Cher. I would hide in her trailer when I didn't want to do tutor school. She introduced me to See's Candy Lollipops, the chocolate pops things, and Perrier.
Hello.
I had never seen sparkling water before. I had seen club soda, but not Perrier. And I was just like, wow, this is really fancy.
Hello.
I asked a lot of questions, and people were very kind and educated me, and it was really a lovely, lovely experience.
Are you sure they're real lemons?
Yes.
Well, I'll tell you what. I'll buy a cup if you buy a box of my delicious Girl Scout cookies. Do we have a deal?
Are they made from real Girl Scouts?
I auditioned for it, and then it feels like months later, we got a call from Joe Aguilar, who had been the accountant on Mermaids, and he was working on Addams Family, and he said he had just been in a production meeting where they were saying that it was between me or this other girl, and Joe and his staff said, oh, we just worked with her and her mother, and they're fantastic. And at that time, there was always a concern over what the mother was like, because mothers of child actors can really cause a lot of mayhem on sets. And because of the glowing review of my mother and her behavior on Mermaids, I got the part of Wednesday. So I was sort of a trouble child. I did not have a very happy household. There was a lot of abuse and a lot of bad times. And so for me, what was more challenging when I became an actress was this like fake pretending to be happy and adorable thing. That was hard for me. When I went to the audition for Addams Family, I had just come from a callback for a movie that I didn't get, where I had to cry and be very upset, and it was exhausting. And so then my mom was like, oh, we have one more audition to go to. And I was like, I really don't want to go. I'm so tired. And she said, well, you don't have to do anything. Basically, the character is just devoid of emotion, and you just have to say the words. And I was like, okay, I can do that. And that's what I did. And for me, it was much easier to be deadpan than to be emotive, which is kind of what the character's all about. Like this idea that little girls are always being told, or women are always being told to smile. And this character just is like, refuses. That would have been my dream as a child. So I was very happy to play this part.
Here's a little welcome gift from my conservatory. I try to match the right flower to each of my girls. And when I read your personal statement in your application, I immediately thought of this one.
I think that Wednesday is a really important role. She's not an archetype. This idea that there is a character out there that young girls can look at, that outsiders can look at, and feel good about not conforming, staying true to who they are. And Jenna's amazing. And I love Tim Burton. I loved working with him. I was excited to work with him again. And it was just fun.
Hi.
It was a very long shoot. I think we shot for 9 months on the Universal lot. I have to say, at that time, it was sort of new technology that they were using to do the sort of mix of live action and cartoon. I would say the average number of takes for every setup was probably about 50. It was a bit tedious at times, but all in all, it was an amazing crew, an incredible experience. Steven Spielberg was a producer, and he would come to set all the time to visit. That, to me, was just the greatest thing. I got him to read Go Ask Alice, because I was obsessed with that book at the time and wanted him to make it into a movie. And he actually read the book, and we had a whole conversation about it, which was very nice of him.
Are you watching this?
Watching what?
Nixon doofus. It's incredible. He should be shot.
Hey, drop the political assassination stuff, please.
It was really incredible. I was a very big fan of Aang's work, so I was really excited to work with him. And then most of the actors also, I was just a huge fan of. My first day of shooting was the scene where Jamie Sheridan brings Elijah's body back home, and everybody starts howling, screaming, crying. That was the first scene that we shot. on the job. So it was really intense and really crazy. And I was 15 and I remember and it was like, you know, up until Ice Storm, I had mainly been doing like family films. I had been dying to do some like real gritty drama. So I remember just being like, oh my God, this is what it's like. All these incredible actors doing all their separate prep things and shooting these scenes and like howling, crying and shaking. And I was just like, oh wow, I've really arrived.
Mrs. Brown, could I see some pictures of Billy from when he was little?
Oh, you want to see some pictures? Sure. Honey, where's the Billy picture?
It was the first time I traveled without my mother. It was the first time I sort of had to really deal with some very extreme things on set. So it was the first time on my own I sort of had to deal with a lot of things that were new to me. So it was sort of like a real trial by fire, sort of growing up. I've never been somebody who thinks beyond making the film. I've just always been somebody who's very present and involved in the making, and I always forget that people are going to see it and hear me. I remember getting a really good review in the New York Times by like a really important film critic, and my mother being like really excited. So all of the accolades after that were very much a surprise to me. I was a really unpleasant teen. I had recovered from anorexia and put on about 40 pounds that I couldn't move. And I just felt gross. And I didn't feel like a movie star. I didn't feel like somebody anyone would ever single out and praise. So it was all very much genuinely a surprise.
You've never slept with a girl,
Nope, never came up.
so to speak, right?
That's just not for me.
It was really fun. Unfortunately, I had gone to Goldie Hawn's pre-Golden Globes party the night before, and I was only like 19, so I didn't know how to do it. Now I understand that nobody actually drinks at those parties, but at that time I didn't know. So I was so horribly hungover at the Golden Globes that I literally just was like, let's get out of here. I'm gonna throw up. I gotta get in the car and go home, and that's what I did.
Is it Theodore?
No, pardon, miss, I'm only a stranger.
Then have a kiss on account.
Tim has such passion and he has such like childlike delight for what he does, and he will literally be behind the monitor mouthing your lines along while you're talking. It's fun to work with somebody who's like really excited and who's like excited about new ideas, and you know, I could bring to him an idea and say, can I do this? Like, I think this would be so fun and I'm good at this, and he'd be like, great, yeah, let's do that. And so there was a lot of passion and excitement and creativity on that set, and that was what I felt the most.
So are you really a steam cleaner?
No, I'm not.
That's good. That sounds real boring.
Oh, man, actually, it's a real good job. Pressure cleaning.
Charlize was so wonderful, and she and I just had such a great rapport and way of working together, and she was so charming and kind, and I just think that we had a combination of being two people who didn't have a lot of ego at that time. I knew I was there to support her. I knew that that job was about her winning an Academy Award. I knew that it was sort of her moment, and I was perfectly happy to be there and do that. The story was really important to tell, and so I wanted to be a part of that. And then working with Patty Jenkins was just amazing. Patty just creates such like a safe space. Like, you know that you're okay and you're gonna be watched out for, and she's there and wants the best for you and the film. And you're not gonna be exploited, and she's not gonna like trick you into getting what she wants from you. And so that was a really wonderful experience. And like Charlize and I, because the material was so dark, we literally would laugh and giggle until Patty called action. It must be a survival thing, because we would just literally crack up hysterically and not be able to stop until Patty called action.
Hannah Davies.
Hannah, why do you have your hand inside my patient?
My sister, actually, who was a big Grey's Anatomy fan, it was the first season, and she was like, I love this show. This show is so amazing. You should definitely do this show. And I was like, okay, great. You love the show? I'll do the show. But I'd only seen like one episode of it before. So I went into it like having read the script once, seen one episode. That was the kind of actor I was at the time. I've always loved it when the writing and the words actually evoke real, genuine emotion in that moment. And so I was genuinely surprised by the performance I gave. I remember them calling cut after one of the takes, and it had been like one of the most emotional times, and no one had sort of told me to get that emotional, but just because of the whole thing, like I got really emotional. I was shaking, and I was surprised by it. And they called cut, and I remember one of the other actors just like looking at me and being like, wow, and kind of joking like, you should be an actor. And just thinking like, oh yeah, that was pretty good.
We can run Father's business. We can make a
We don't
profit.
know the first thing about running
I know
business.
about solving problems. The problem right now is everyone thinks we're an easy target. That has to change.
I was very surprised by my SAG nomination, as was everybody on my team. I came out of Soul Cycle and had messages from my publicist, and she was like, you got nominated for a SAG Award. And I was like, what? Like, I had no idea that I had even been submitted. I certainly hadn't been doing any campaigning, and I was on for a Lifetime movie. It was very bizarre to me. I never thought that doing a Lifetime movie I would get a SAG nomination. So I was really shocked and surprised and really grateful. I also have an interest in true crime, and sort of that's one of those like really sort of fantastic sort of American crime stories. So I was interested in it, and also interested in sort of more of the psychological aspects of that character. When I was younger, I was obsessed with the fact that so many women middle-aged had been committed. I remember being like 9 or 10 and just being like, wow, so women in the past used to just go crazy, like around 35. As you get older, you realize like, no, just women were conveniently put into mental asylums if they had any sort of emotion or extreme behavior. So I think I was very interested in that aspect of it as well.
Caligula, when people look at me, do they just see someone desperate for love? Just some murderer?
Playing Misty is really fun. It sort of validates this side of me that's very weird. In the beginning, I just was so conscious of not making her a caricature and making sure that she felt grounded in real emotion and experience, but still managing this very specific and unique character. As she's grown and changed over the seasons, it has been difficult. You know, I think when you have a very extreme character, to sort of like let more normal humanity seep in, like all of a sudden second season she's in a relationship, and like, wow, okay, when I created the character I never thought this would happen, but now I have to somehow figure out what this very extreme character who wasn't particularly relatable is like in relatable experiences. That was a really challenging calibration. And then this season she's finally in less denial. She's sort of cracked. She's not ignoring sort of the slings and arrows from her quote unquote friends. She's not ignoring the fact that she's everyone's punching bag. It's almost like she's reacting in the present, but she's also reacting to the history and the past. But again, she starts to actually be angry. She starts to curse a little bit more. So to sort of calibrate that performance where you're letting these more normal aspects in, but trying to maintain the character, make sure she's still that recognizable Misty with all these changes, I found that to be very challenging.
I'll be the victim.
All your life.
I'm going to be an actress.